Folks, welcome back to the Get Wired podcast. Really appreciate you being here. If you are new here and you're not sure what these are, usually in these episodes, I'm doing a little bit of a, usually we're cutting wire and doing things with the e-waste business, or sometimes we're sorting clothing or just doing some work on the side. However, yesterday, and sneak peek for next week's video, we did some big changes in this space over here, and I actually sold all my wire. It's all gone now, and I don't actually have much to process at this point in time. And we've been making some changes all around the warehouse. So I'm actually just kind of wanted to do a bit of a quick episode today. There's a whole bunch of questions which I think, look, they're going to be pretty high level, but I think they're really important questions, and I'm going to answer them myself. They're really like just big questions we should be asking ourselves when it comes into doing business, whether it's reselling or something completely different. And you know, this isn't necessarily a sit down and let's do work together, but it's a sit down, and I'm going to go through a couple of questions which I think really get us thinking outside of the box and challenging the way we're thinking in the moment, because we look at it from a whole different point of view. And this is really important to do on a regular basis to make sure that we're aligning to where we want to be going and focus to what we're trying to achieve, but also that, you know, we can challenge our norm when we think about these things, because we only know what we know, and it's really important to make sure we're always pushing the boundaries for ourselves in order to understand more, learn more, and grow more. And I'm no perfect fellow doing business. I've just been trying to figure out this as I go for the last 5 years. But there's a whole bunch of things here which I think are super important, and some of these I love, and some of these, you know, it's gonna really rip off the Band-Aid on some areas. So look, this might be 5 minutes, it might be 10 minutes, it might even be 15 minutes. You know me, I kind of chat and waffle on, but get cozy, get comfortable. If you want to do some work while listening to this, then more than happy for you to do. But what I will challenge you to do is answer the questions yourself. Take the time, answer the questions yourself. I think it's super important, and you'll grab some really good value from this. And of course, if you enjoy these episodes, make sure you do like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you want as well. So they're probably broken down into a few different areas. And the first area is kind of like business growth and direction, right? And this is kind of like very broad, but there's 3 questions here that I would be asking myself on a regular basis. Number 1 is, if I keep doing this for the next 12 months, will I like where I end up? Now, this is a really great question simply because it's testing whether your current path actually leads you to your desired outcome. Now, you know me, I talk about this almost every episode of like, if you know what you want, if you know where you're going, if you have a bit of a plan, if you know what your end game is, then, you know, if you're doing one thing every day to get you closer to where that goal is, then, you know, you're winning. But sometimes it can be a little bit hard to see that in the moment. And for me, I'm a long-term thinker, and I'm also happy to play it out very long. But 12 months for some people is a long time. For some people, it's a short time. So you've got to think about, if you're doing what you're doing at the moment, let's say, I wouldn't even be able to tell you what the average, excuse me, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the average business size is as a reseller on eBay. Simply talking to that because, you know, that's kind of the industry that we're talking about here, and that's a good one for a reference. But let's say people are turning over, I don't know, $4,000 a month, $4,000, $5,000 a month in revenue. And, you know, maybe you're profiting about 30% of that, right? So maybe you're taking home, you know, what do we say, $1,000 to $2,000 a month. You got to understand, are you happy with that over the next 12 months? Is that what you want? Now, for majority of you doing, you know, reselling, eBay, etc., it's going to be a part-time gig. And I think, you know, to get $1,000, $2,000 a month in profit, and you keep doing that for the next 12 months, that's epic, right? But for some, you know, for me, like, I'm trying to build it in a different perspective of knowing, like, well, you know, even if my payday comes in 10 years, but that payday is 10x what I've been earning, then I'm happy for that. But that comes with a lot of risks, a lot of challenges, a lot of hard work, and it's not really the ideal way for everyone to do it. So I got to ask myself, if what I'm doing right now, if I kept doing it for the next 12 months, will I end up? I think yes, but at the same time, you know, I'm always pushing it to grow because I know it can, based on the basis of what we do. So yes and no. Like, I like to challenge the norm. I like to challenge you know, when we get complacent and get comfortable, I like to always be growing. But that's me. Number 2 is, what's the actual outcome I'm trying to create here? This is really important because it helps you force and separate the activity from the results. Because we do a lot of things because we hear other people talk about it, or other people doing it, or seeing other people, like especially me, I document my whole journey, and it's easy to think, oh, Chris is doing that, maybe I'll try that. It might not work for you. It might not work for me. So you got to understand, like, what's the outcome you're trying to create here? Obviously, I think, end of the day, it's profit, but for some of us, it's really just a one-man show kind of thing. For me, it's building a beautiful business with a lot of team members, and that we can all grow from, and get some value from, and actually grow as individuals, and obviously serve a big customer base. But you really need to understand the difference here, because that's going to be a game changer for you to be able to work towards where you want to be. Number 3 is, if I had to rebuild from scratch tomorrow, would I build it the same way? Look, I think this is a good question to always ask, because it exposes inefficiencies, bad habits, and systems that maybe are only to your comfort. So definitely would, fix a lot of things. But now that I'm here, it's easier to play fix than to, end and restart. But definitely a lot of lessons along the way. And I mean, look, that's the beauty of it, is I've learned. I'm sharing my lessons. And if other people want to go do something similar, maybe they can, skip some of those mistakes. But I think a lot of it would be the same, but yeah, I'd probably be a little bit more careful with, I've probably jumped a little bit too quick in some areas, and, trying to maintain that and manage that has been a challenge. We're making it work, but yeah, hindsight is a beautiful thing, because, in 20 years, you'll probably think, oh, this was great. I should have done double that. But in the moment, it's always a bit of a challenge because you're learning. But once you know that and it becomes a normal, it's very easy to digest. So definitely got to look at it from that perspective. The next area I want to talk about is the big P word, profit and financial health. And this one's a really, really good question. And this is going to probably make some people happy, and, it's going to make some people confused at the same time. And I know that, if you're criticizing a business, like if you're critiquing it, this is a really important question. Would I buy this business at its current profitability? And it forces you to look at the numbers as if you're an outsider evaluating the investment. Now, the question I know is, or the answer I know to this is no one's going to buy it. Simply because it's not the profitability that an investor would want on return. So that challenges me that, there's a lot of things that I need to be fixing. And that's a question you should be asking yourself. For me, I'm still figuring out a lot of that because it's all happening in real time. And I've said this, my biggest weakness is also one of my biggest strengths. I'm happy to keep growing, but the weakness that comes with that is like, we never really stop to really just soak in the profit. I just go. And that's not always a good thing. So number 5 is then, if I had to double my profit without more hours, what would I change first? Now, this is really good because it gets you thinking. Now, for me, it really comes down to leverage, right? How do you leverage what you have? And that's what I'm really trying to create is, when I first start, I can't just go have a warehouse and leverage a warehouse because I didn't have any cash flow, didn't have any money, anything like that. But now that we've built the business and it's able to pay for all these things, we can start to leverage them more. Now, for me, in my mind, we don't really have any excuse not to be able to increase our profit now. I think where the struggle is me learning how to maximize the output of the individuals that I'm leveraging, or the items that I'm leveraging, whether it be stock, whether it be space, whether it be people, whether it be systems, whether it be processes, all those different things. So I think that's where it's really important. And now that I got 2 photo booths, that's really important as well. I can leverage that differently. So I think what would I change first is really just get on with it. We just need to get on with it and do more. In terms of, when I say do more, like not take on more, is actually just get more listed, get more up, ready to be sold, and then actually sell more. That's really the way it needs to be. So it sounds easy, and it should be. And that's the challenge you've got to always solve, is making sure, like, well, if this was easy, what would it look like? So yeah, definitely a really good one, and definitely something that I'm still learning on, because, hey, this ain't an easy game. Maybe for some. The next one is customer and market focus. Number 6, why should someone choose me over the cheapest option? And this is what I try to reiterate to our customers, that, I'm providing a value proposition around great quality, you're getting it quick, it's a great price, and you can buy with confidence. You know that it's authentic, it's going to be good quality, it's washed, it's ticking off all the boxes. But unless people don't value the item the same way we're trying to perceive it as, then it's never going to happen. Now, one of those challenges has been price point, because I've got a customer that I'm dealing with at the moment, and they're complaining that my postage is too expensive. And I said, well, the reality is, you know, I can buy someone and they're, you know, 25% cheaper in postage. And I said, look, that's great. One, I said, maybe they have a lower cost of good and they can give it to you as a discount. But the reality is, to send this, it costs this much. Then there's the padded mailer or the satchel or whatever you're sending in the box. That is the cost. Like, we're not really profiting off it. Sometimes we will make a profit, but others we lose on. So it averages out. And I think because other people are able to do it cheaper, now that might be because they're taking a loss on that, or they're taking a hit, or they're covering it, or, you know, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And for me, I said, look, that's what it is. But, you know, if you look at our feedback, this is what we can guarantee, this is what we can provide you. You know, you choose to value that or not. But that's the way you got to look at it. Why are people happy to buy from you? And then number 7 is, if my best customers could redesign my business, what would they change? This is a good one. I actually don't know. I think, I don't know. Look, there could be some costs there that maybe they think, but I'm pretty competitive. I don't know. I honestly don't know. That is a really good question. I need to spend some time on that, because what would they want? It's a good question. Next one, which comes under decision making and opportunity cost. Number 8, what am I saying no to by saying yes to something else? So this is a really important way to look at things, because what it does is it makes the cost of each decision very visible. So in money, time, and focus. So when I say no to something, it means I'm saying yes to something else. Or if you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So you really got to weigh up, as like, by doing this, where does this take me? So I've just signed a deal for 5,000 items. That wasn't kind of part of my plan in terms of an actual step to go, but I do know it's a part of the plan in getting me to my overall goal. So it's like, does that lead me away? Sure, it leads me away from the way I thought I was going to do it, but it's still going to get me there. And that's why you got to look at it from those perspectives, because if you're asking yourself, does this get me closer to where I want to be? Then it's probably something, if it's within reason, then it's something to tick off. The next one, which is number 9, if I couldn't fail, would I still make the same choice? I think so. There's a lot of things that I've made which I've been scared to make, and it's turned out okay. But I mean, if you couldn't fail, then you've got no problem to do it. But the reality is when you know you won't fail, we will do silly things. When you know that you could fail, you're going to work in your hardest to avoid it failing. So I think there's some different, you know, mindsets here that we have to be super careful of, because one of them might mean you're just being reckless simply because, you know, like if you knew you couldn't die, you would do anything. Whereas if you know you possibly could die, but you're going to do everything in your power to avoid it, that's a different conversation. So you really still have to do the weight of, would I be comfortable if I fail versus if I don't fail, you know, am I going to still make the same choice? So that's where you probably got to look at it, right? Is, are you willing to fail? Are you still going to be okay if you fail? But then are you going to do everything in your power to not have to fail, right? And it usually comes down to, if you fail, it means you lose this much money. If you fail, you waste this much time. That's probably a good way to look at it. We're nearly at the end there, folks. We've got 2 more: personal alignment and longevity. Number 10 is, does this business still serve the life I want to live? 100%. And for me, you know, I'm building a business that suits my lifestyle, that's rapidly changing and growing, and it will continue to do so. But it keeps your lifestyle alignment in view, so growth doesn't outspace the happiness that you have or you're trying to create. For me, you know, obviously some weeks are way busier than others, and it's like, oh, it's a bit of a grind, but that's why I like to keep things interesting, challenge myself, push me to the new limits, because it's like a video game. And then number 11, which is the last one, am I building something I'd be proud to hand over? 100%. Like, I mean, I'm super, super proud of what I've built. To hand it over to someone else would be very hard, because, you know, it's my baby. But, you know, bringing on Dion and he's taken over more things, you know, we do have quality, we do have sustainability, and we do have a, you know, reputation to uphold. And I'm very proud of that, because we've built that over the last 5 years. But that's the big question you should be asking yourself is like, are you proud of what you've built? And if not, what are you doing about it? So these are the big questions. Look, there's probably maybe some other things you can think about outside of this. I'll just double check my notes actually on the fly here while I'm doing this. But I think, take some time, think about it, and you can put this to a perspective around like, you can bring into, metrics within your business. You can talk about sell-through rate. You can talk about, what is your profit margins. You can talk about, how much your inventory has been sticking around, like your inventory age. But, other things that I think about is like, how much tasks are we doing that actually link to revenue to then help us project the amount of revenue? And then, what are the KPI movements around that, such as the ASP or the sell-through rate? And then, there's other things we can think about is, what are our overheads compared to our revenue? How quick does it take us to get stuff to market? There's so many ways we can look at it. So you can go through this and add some different, real specific metrics to it. So one for me is like, as I've outsourced to the team, I've got return on capital that I've spent on these staff members and the return on staff. So I know how much each staff member makes for the business. All those different things. The other things you can look at is like average order value. How much are my customers spending on average opposed to how much is each item selling for? So an average sale price might be, you might sell 10 shirts for $40 each, right? It's $400. Average sale price is $40. But, it might have been 2 customers that purchased all that, right? And one of them might have purchased 80% of them, one of them might have purchased 20%. So all of a sudden, their average spend might be completely different. So that's a really interesting way to look at it as you start to get more repeat customers and more customers. So many different ways we can look at it. Anyway, we could go on about this. Maybe I can do an episode on, different metrics and things like that. That's it from me. Appreciate being here. I've got someone arriving now. So we'll be back here again next week doing it all again. If you got any questions, any ideas, any thoughts, chuck them down below. More than happy to continue the conversation. And I'll see you next week. Ciao.